Hey guys, Frosted Knives here, back with another book review. Sorry that it's been such a long time in between reviews. I'd offer you an excuse, but the sad fact of the matter is I'm lazy. What can I say? So today we are back on the road to the Dark Tower, and we are going to be reviewing Stephen King's The Dark Tower, number 5, Wolves of the Calla. And this is the first run hardcover edition. Book was published in 2003 after quite a long hiatus between Wizard and Glass and this one, which did include a car accident, but we'll get to that in book 6. And the hardcover clocks in at 709 pages. So it's one of the longer novels in the series, not the longest. That one will be book number 8. 7. Book number 7. The last book will be the longest book. So there's the cover. Right there, that is a picture of Susanna throwing the plates. And with this book, they started doing funky things, like they added little keyhole here with the number. The back had pictures of Stephen King then and back when he was 19. So it was like a then and now photos. This book does include pictures, illustrations in this one, which I actually like the illustrations of this one a lot. Let me show you my favorite illustration in this book. Oh, there it is. I just blew right by it. This is my favorite illustration, and it is a picture of the wolves of the Calla, the wolves of Thunderclap. And there it is, right there. So, let's see. We left off with Roland and his quartet. They were leaving Topeka. They had a short, they were back on the path of the beam, leaving Topeka, had a short stay in an abandoned building to wait out a Stark blast, and now here we are, they're on their way to the borderlands, I think they call it the Outer Crescent, and they're going to Calla Sturgis, and beyond Calla Sturgis is Thunderclap, and Endworld, and the Dark Tower. So we're really close. So, the story of Wolves of the Calla, and I'm going to try to do this without the synopsis in front of me. Calla Sturgis is a farming community, and in this community, most of the people that have children have twins. People who have single children that's unusual, and so every 23 years, these wolves come out of Thunderclap, and they take one pair of the twins, and they bring them to Thunderclap with them. They basically steal them. And they're there for a short amount of time, and when the children come back, they are basically mentally handicapped, and they grow to giant size, and then they die an early death. So, and this cycle has been going on for 3 or 4 generations. So, Roland and his quartet come upon Calla Sturgis, and at this point, they decide they want to try to make a stand against the wolves. So they try to get Roland and his quartet's help to see if they can make a stand against the wolves. And one of the people that we come across in this book is one Father Donald Callahan. Now, you may know him as the priest from Salem's Lot. Well, he's in the book, and he actually plays a big role in this book, and the next book, and into the last book. So here we come across another one of King's creations from another story. Father Callahan left the lot and wound up in Roland's world, which was very exciting to find. So the long and short of the story is they ask for Roland and his quartet's help. After some investigating and some talking and some backstory and whatnot, Roland agrees to help them. And then at the end of the book, they make a final stand against the wolves. It's basically a slaughter. The wolves, they send 63 wolves against Roland and his quartet, and there's like 4 of them plus maybe 4 or 5 of the Calla folk. and they wind up slaughtering all of the wolves, and so they save Caliban and Sturgis, and from the wolves finally. And now the folks of the Calla know how to defeat the wolves if they were to come back, which they probably won't. But what's interesting about the book, we get Father Callahan's backstory. What happens after he left the lot? Now, after, if you remember, he went to fight the vampires in Salem's Lot. The head vampire made Callahan drink his blood, and then he basically leaves at the end of Salem's Lot. He leaves. He just kind of, he wanders out of town. Well, he tells a story of what happened to him, and what happens is he basically wanders America for a while. And he finds that he can detect vampires now because he has a little bit of vampire blood in him. So he can detect type 3 vampires, like low-level vampires, by their blue aura. And he kind of goes around towns, and he does some work in the homeless shelters, and he does some charity work, and he does this and that. And he occasionally kills vampires along the way. Well, he kills enough vampires that he catches the attention of the low men. The Tahin, as Roland will call them, but the low men. And if you've read the Hearts in Atlantis novella, Low Men in Yellow Coats, you'll know who the low men are. Well, now the low men are after Callahan because he's been killing vampires. And he's made, that makes Callahan an enemy of the Crimson King because the low men work for the Crimson King. So eventually he ducks him for years. Eventually he winds up running into a trap. They try to kill him. And he escapes and he attempts to commit suicide by throwing himself out a window. I'm not really sure if he dies. It says he dies and winds up in Roland's world, but I'm not really sure because he launches himself out of the window and then he kind of like wakes up in Roland's world. And he actually wakes up, which is very neat. He wakes up in the way station, same way station that Jake wound up in. He actually wakes up in the way station maybe an hour after Roland and Jake had moved on. And the first person he meets is Flag. And Flag basically gives him one of the Wizard's Rainbow. He gives him Black 13. And then he says, eventually you'll need this to stop Roland. And he pushes him through a doorway that Flag creates. And then he winds up in Caliban Sturgis. And that's where he lives for 20 some odd years until Roland finally, makes his way there. And it's a really cool backstory that Callahan has. I loved seeing Callahan in this book. So that took up a large chunk of the book. The other thing that happened a lot in this book is that Susanna is like this close to giving birth. Mia, the other personality inside her head, Mia, daughter of none, is ready to give birth to her chap. She's ready to do it, and she's been going on these midnight excursions and eating all kinds of disgusting foods and live animals and stuff like that. And Susanna's been kind of fighting her, trying to hold it off, but eventually she there's a struggle going on through the whole book. And at the very end of the book, right as the wolves are attacking, Susanna kind of goes into labor. And she fights it off, and she tells Mia, no, this is not a good time to go into labor now. I can't have the baby now. Let me fight the wolves with Roland, and then after that, we can go and have your baby. So she fights with Roland, fights the wolves, and at the end of the book, Mia completely takes over Susanna, and she goes off to have the baby. So that's where we leave Susanna. She's off now. She's gone, and I know where she went. She's gone to have the chap. That's what Mia calls the baby. And of course, Roland and Eddie, they got to go after her at the end. And the other thing that happens in this book is that in Caliban Sturgis, in a cave, they find a door. It's called the Doorway Cave, and the door is called the Unfound Door. And the only thing that can open that door is Black 13, which is what Callahan has. And the door will open up onto any time, anywhere, any when, any universe that you want to go. It's basically a doorway to all universes. And they can use it to go to any time, to New York, to any level of the tower, any universe, anywhere they want to go as long as they have Black 13. That's what opens the door. So in part of the book, they use Black 13 to go back to 1977, New York, back to Calvin Tower, so that they can persuade Calvin Tower to sell them the parking lot with the rose in it because they need to. They're convinced that that rose is the tower in that universe, and so they have to protect it. So they do some time traveling in the book, going back to 1977, going back to talk to Calvin Tower, going back to protect the rose and all that. And at the end of the book, Susanna, or Mia, steals Black 13, right? And heads off to go have her chap, and she goes through the doorway. And she takes Black 13 with her. Now the door's closed. And Roland and his quartet need to figure out how to open it because they took the key. Mia took the key by taking Black 13. So Mia's off somewhere. Actually, she's gone to 1999 is where she actually is. But she's gone. She's taking Black 13 with her. The door is shut. Eddie's frantic. And now that's at the end of the book. And at the end of the book, Roland finds a book. He comes across a bookcase that Calvin Tower made them protect. He comes across a bookcase, and there's all kinds of books in it, and he picks one out. And the book that he finds, that he has Eddie read, because Roland can't read our language, like he can't understand our words. The book that Roland finds is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. And now Callahan is all freaking out at the end of the story because he's got Salem's Lot in his hands. And he's reading it. And he's saying, but I'm not a fiction. I'm a real person. But am I a fiction? But how can this book be written about my life when I actually lived? But it's a novel, which means that Stephen King wrote it and made it up, which means I'm... Oh, that's where we leave at the end. We find that the barriers between fiction and reality are breaking down. And not only does Callahan show up in Roland's world, but so does the novel Salem's Lot by Stephen King. So you see what's happening as the tower is breaking down, as the beams are breaking, as the tower is collapsing. The worlds are colliding, fiction and reality, and everything's getting smushed together. Thinnies everywhere, and everything just... Whew. Now, at the end of this book, they've just completely blown the fourth wall. Now you're like, well, Salem's Lot, but is Callahan real? Is the book real? Is the tower making the novels reality, or are these guys not actually real, and we're just reading stories about them? This was a really good book. Next to my the Wastelands and Drawing of the Three, this is my next favorite. Wastelands was awesome. Was one of my favorites. Drawing of the Three was awesome. This book was awesome, and we got it after sort of a long hiatus. King had been taking a break, and then he had his car accident, and things happened, but then he finally went back to the tower, and we got this, and now things are shifting. So now we've got Susanna on the run with Black 13. We've got, the Calla Bryn Sturgis has been saved against the wolves, which incidentally, just to clear things up, the wolves of the Calla were Doom bots. Think about that. They were Doom bots. Literal Doom bots that fought with lightsabers and Harry Potter snitches. I shit you not, that's in the book. Doom bots with lightsabers. I give this book a 5 out of 5 because I think this book is really, really good. And it's just gotten better with rereadings. So now that's where we are. We've left the quartet. They got to find Susanna. They got to do something about the baby. They got to get the door open. They got to get their hands on Black 13. They got to figure out who Stephen King is. They actually have to figure out who Stephen King is because they don't know who he is. They got to go find him now. And the Calla is saved, but we got some stuff to do before we get back on the road to the actual tower. The next book, book number 6, is The Song of Susanna. That's the next book, and we're almost there, folks. We are almost there. We got 2 books left until we get to the end of the tower, and it's close. And when we get to the end of the tower, we're all going to blow the horn and call the names of the people that have fallen, just like Roland does. So yeah, I give this book a 5 out of 5. You could read it if you've never read The Tower. It's a really good book, and I love that this is not just the next Dark Tower book, but it is essentially the sequel to Salem's Lot, because we find out all about Father Callahan. And I love Father Callahan, and if you want to find out more about Father Callahan, you got to read this book. And then you got to read Song of Susanna, and then you got to read the beginning of the Dark Tower, the last book, because he's in all of them. He's part of Roland's quartet. This gets a 5 out of 5 in my book. This is an awesome read. And even though it's 709 pages, you read it, it goes like that. It's just a great read. Really, really good. So there we are, folks. 2 more books until we get to the Tower. And I will see you at the next review. Happy reading. Thanks for following me this far. Just a little further, constant viewer. Just a little further. And we'll get to the Tower, and we'll actually get to see what's in there. Until next time, keep it real.